Hey everyone, thank you for inviting me and having me here with you this Sunday. Um, first want to say happy Father's Day to those who are fathers, however that may take shape for you. It was interesting in terms of reading my bio. Something I've been thinking a lot about is like how I wrote out my father in my biography, and I'm now getting to a place where I'm writing him back into my biography. And I mention that in part because they are very relevant to the remarks that I want to give. I also want to caveat my remarks in that I do not identify as a religious person, although I deeply identify as someone who's like very spiritual. And that was something that I came into during basically the pandemic, in which I had a spiritual awakening, which also include me recognizing that I had not grieved my own father's death for more than 20 years. He died when I was 18 years old. And so you're meeting me at a very transformative moment in my life. So part of my remarks are partially written, part of them are just going to come off the cuff. I'm going to, as much as I can, speak from my heart. So the working title of this is called Beyond Pride. We must move beyond pride. Pride is a feeling that acts as a weapon against shame. While it serves a purpose, we get stuck there in purgatory between love and fear. Pride keeps us in our war between the higher consciousness, aka love, and base consciousness, aka fear. Pride is constantly seeking validation to back up one's claim of self-love. Our love of self should be self-evident because it's all within us. No one's love can replace our love for ourselves. They can only love us as themselves. I believe we're in a moment right now in which we're facing the limitations of organizing around identity. While identity is obviously an important place where we can find refuge from a world that may or may not want to destroy us for who we are or who we're perceived to be. However, while it is important that we do have our places of safety, it also can mean that we reinforce a world of us versus them, because we believe that if you're not within the group, therefore you are a potential threat. And I believe that this space is really important for those of us, especially as queer people, if we do not come from a background that supported us as who we are. The Pride Month and the feelings of pride are really important spaces of stability where we can get back on our feet and situate ourselves in the world. However, when we get stuck in our safety zones, we begin to deteriorate ultimately because we're not actually challenging ourselves to go back into the world and to interact with people who may have different experiences. I believe what this ultimately does is it keeps us trapped in a state of victimhood and where our pain becomes our identity. And I believe that in order for us to do this multiracial, multi-class organizing, we have to confront our pain and also our shadow. So we have to confront within us the parts of us that make us very uncomfortable, the parts of us that don't really fit in with societal norms, the parts of us that we may not fully agree with. And I think that we're in a moment in time where we have to integrate both our light and our shadow, and that we cannot run only to our light and leave behind our shadow. Our shadows are important parts of who we are. I believe a part of the queer experience is learning how to integrate these pieces of who we are. And so I believe in that way that we all have queerness within us. Queerness is not simply about who you want to have sex with, who you are romantically attracted to. It's much, much deeper to that. And in fact, I believe is actual spiritual experience. And I think it's unfortunate because so many queer people have experienced so much religious trauma that they have been severed from their own spirituality and have come lost in the world that says, in order to be queer, you can't also be a spiritual person. And so I deeply believe that I am at a point in my life where now I can really tap into that, because it is through my spirituality that I now better understand my politics. Because if I was only looking at the material world, it wouldn't make sense why I empathize for someone as Trump, Vance, any of these right-wing people. In one of my pieces of art, I said, I have no enemies, just future lovers. And so I believe that this is a moment that we really have to really be more vulnerable and come to understand these parts of ourselves, and rather than run from them, to actually really learn how to love them and to learn how to embrace whatever those pieces of us are trying to teach us. And I think if we are able to get through this moment, we will have more of a world where we're not treating people as strangers, but assuming that people are a part of who we are because we all are interconnected. And that until we understand this, which is a spiritual experience, we will not be able to build the movements that we need. And so that's why I believe right now, most of the work that we need to do right now is within culture, because we do not have a culture that reinforces the politics of unity. We live in the politics as that's rooted in fear and scarcity and us versus them. And so therefore, if you show up in the world from a place of unity, you will be confused by the world saying that that is not what you're doing. And so we have to transform our society so that can then open up new possibilities. And so I just want to leave my marks there and say, like, wow, happy Pride. Obviously, it's a great time. Happy summer solstice. But also, I believe this is the moment to move beyond pride and realize that love is our ultimate destination. Thank you.